Welcome, Tangle friends. My name is Annie, and I'm here in my studio in Estes Park, Colorado on a very cold and snowy day. It was 23 below zero this morning when I got up. I wasn't even going to walk my dog, but I just can't really get into my day until I take my furry friend out. And she was not bothered by the cold at all. We waited until it was a balmy -6 and look at her romp in the snow. I love the snow. I love the cold. Doesn't bother me, but I thought today would be a great day to snuggle in and get yourself some hot tea and make an effort to learn a new tangle and or revisit and explore an old one that you might know. I wanted to choose this one, Flux by Rick Roberts. And why did I choose that? Well, yesterday being Groundhog Day, or Imbolc, or Candlemas, whatever you celebrate, is the day, February 2nd, that denotes the halfway point, the midpoint between the winter solstice and spring equinox. Basically, it's like the first day of spring, in a sense. It's not spring, it's denoting that spring is coming, right? Our Puxatawny Phil, our groundhog here in the United States, saw his shadow when he came out of his burrow, and so unfortunately, well, and or fortunately, because I like winter, we are going to have 6 more weeks of winter, according to him. What better way to celebrate the coming of spring, which those holidays denote, than with a kind of spring-like tangle? I hope you enjoy tangling with me and get some inspiration. If you know Flux, stick with me because you might find a new way to look at it, explore it, and enjoy the coming spring with me. So here are some samples of Flux. This is a sample of Flux. This is basically almost a monotangle of Flux. And here's another one that I like so much. As you can tell, I really like drawing the flux and filling in those interstices, those areas, the negative space, with perfs. I think that's such a beautiful look. So Flux actually has 2 different versions. One is Rick's version and one is Maria's version. So let's take a look at that. Flux is a Zen-tangle pattern, one of the very first I ever learned, and I've been doing it for so long and love it so very much. It's one of my go-to tangles, obviously. So let me show you Maria's Flux. Hers is kind of like a muka head that then tapers down to the tip like this. And it's wonderful to kind of keep on layering this down. It's a great Zen flow tangle, and then you can go in the opposite direction. And of course you can also fill in those areas, whoops, the interstices with the perfs as well, or color in negative space. It's very non-representational, as both fluxes are, but you can make them into more of a botanical kind of plant-like look, which we're going to do today. So we're going to be using actually Rick's Flux. And Rick's Flux goes like this. It's pretty much like just this really curvy teardrop almost. And it does take a little bit of practice to get your curve right. You really want to bow out the top wide and then come down in a point. And that's what makes this Flux look so beautiful. Then what Rick does, he puts a midrib in like this and a few little dots to indicate the direction of the midrib on the leaf. So we're going to be working with this Rick's Flux in our project today. What I'm going to be using is a Phi Tile from Zen-tangle, my own PN Micron pen, just a blending stump. Today I've got my Tombow Mono. I love Tombow. And then of course my kneaded eraser for lifting. I hope you stay with me because Flux is one of those patterns that I know you probably know it as a Zen-tangler. It's because it's so popular and it's been out there for a long time, but you might want to stick with me to just explore, right? This is a little bit different than just maybe the non-representational Flux. So what we're going to do is going to start with a string This is not going to be a traditional Zentangle tile in that we're going to have a string per se that is non-representational. Rather, our lines are going to help guide us to our desired look. So I'm going to start with this little faux band, or this little band that we're going to tuck our stem of flux into, and I'm putting it in pencil just so it's easier to know to go draw behind. And I'm just going to make a, let's see, I'm going to find what I did here. Make a string for where we're going to be adding our flux. These are pretty much like a branch or a midrib that we're going to use to guide. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and ink out my little trompe l'oeil band down here, and then start my I like to do a really tapered and kind of thin branch. Don't worry that it's not perfect. I'm going to stop here and use that to aura, and then come back, basically just aura-ing that line, and then come back down. Always draw under the line that was there, and I'm going to make this into kind of a little branch down here. And I just noticed that I don't have my glasses on, which is not good. So let's go ahead and start our little flux pattern. I'm going to just start down here. And what's really fun to do is to change your direction. Notice how I just imagined the flux shape up here and then went down. You can make them large, you can make them small. I'm just going to go for it how I feel. Nice big one that's got some overlap. It's a great tangle to enjoy your pen stroke and get some Zen flow. Look at, let's go really bend around here and come behind that one, and let's go under here. Just have fun composing as you go. If this is brand new to you, you might want to stick with this kind of configuration where you don't have a lot of overlap going on. If you're a beginner and you find this a bit difficult, just keep mirroring what you do on one side. And go down here. Get progressively smaller at the top. Let's back off and take a look. We could put maybe another, well, I'm not going to leave that for the perfs. So here we go on our second stem. We hear this is, we don't know what's going on, it's going behind the leaf. Let's meet almost up with that guy. Do some behind. Directional change is always a beautiful compositional element. Oh, here, I just made a heart. Didn't even try. And I'm going to be a renegade and go beyond my border that I've put a string of. looks pretty good. So the other fun thing to do is just enjoy now making that midrib and those little dots. So you always want to make sure that when you're doing that, you bow with the form, the shape. By that I mean, look, I'm kind of mimicking or auraing this bow here. If you make that midrib straight, it's not going to look very realistic or believable as a actual leaf form. So I'm going to bow, dot, dot, dot. Look how much character that adds. And same thing with the little dots. We're going to, let's try this one that's really got a big curve on it. So we're going to curve up and continue our dots in that manner so it leads our eye to the tip of that little leaf shape, that flux. Curve, dot, dot, dot. And you don't have to do 3 dots. You don't have to do any dots. You can do whatever you want. I just like the look. So there's that. And before we fill in those interstices with perfs, I would like to show you how much lively line will help this composition. So here we have one leaf shape on top of the other, and so I'm going to just emphasize that by weighting the line a little bit there. Wherever there's like an overlap situation, you can weight your lines. I also like to weight one side of my branch or stem. Oh, really got weighted there. And then just every once in a while, you can just find another line to weight till it has a balance of this kind of thick and thin look. And now I'm probably going to switch up to my 01 Micron pen and make some perfs. So this is the look we're going for. Well, if you want. I love these perfs. This sort of reminds me of a mistletoe with the little white berries, right? I just love all of this. And when it comes to shading, it's really fun to have those almost pearl-like shapes. So a lot of them I'm going to just really like smash or squish into, going from line to line and filling that out. Again, this is your piece, your composition. You can choose to put fewer perfs in or none, or have fun coloring them in different colors, like maybe red for sort of the winterberry look. I always like to have a few really large ones for shading purposes. It's really fun. And once again, this lends itself to the opportunity to just enjoy and relax. Take a moment, turn it this way and that, decide where you want more perfs. You can even have a few perfs just random errant that have dropped off of our little branches. The most important thing now is, do you see how these are just like floating? They're not grounded in any way, and we want to really ground them and make them pop. And you do that by filling in these really tiny areas that we refer to as interstices. So we really want to darken that negative space and that's going to help our little perfs just become more incorporated into the look. And this is another opportunity to clean things up, or if you don't like your perf constellation, the way you've arranged it, you can always just darken that whole area. See how much more depth this region has compared to this up here? Wow, so that really helps us see our branches too. All right, I think we can stop there for now and start talking about shading. Let's shade our flux leaf first. What I like to do is put some graphite along the midrib. Let's start with this one. And then taking my tortillion, I'm going to blend it out, and I'm going to kind of shade one side and leave the other side in light. So it kind of looks like this is twisting around. If you have an overlap, as we do always in shading, like this is on top of this, and we want to push this one back, we're going to give some shading in this area. Blend that out. So you can go around, and however you choose to shade, you can go around and add your graphite first and then concentrate on your blending as a second step. And there are all different ways to shade this. This is just my suggestion, and kind of like the way it looks like the leaf is kind of twisted and turned, right? So this is into the light, and this goes down into the shadow. When you have a really large leaf like this one, it's kind of nice to pull some of the graphite over into this kind of curved shape, leaving a bit of a halo or a highlight there. So this whole area would be shaded, because this leaf is casting a shadow right there. So remember, this is Zen-Tangle inspired art. It is not Zen-Tangle, and in this case we can use our little kneaded eraser to pick up areas where the shading gets a little bit dark, and that's what I'm going to do here as soon as I get things shaded the way I want. I'm just going to take a little piece. For example, these got kind of dark. And I do like to reblend after I pick up. Look how much more three-dimensional that is with the shading. So please, please do shade, even if it's daunting at first. Just take it slow. Take your time. You can always erase if you don't like the way something looks. And now we're going to do things like add a little drop shadow here. Here's a area where the branch could be lending a drop shadow. And then we're going to go and shade a few perfs. I would say that you don't need to shade every single one of them, because your eye kind of fills in. And I like the brightness of some of the very bright white non-shaded perfs. So let's take a larger one. I like to do this simple shading where it's nothing more than like a comma, and then you blend that out so you don't have the hard line. You have less density here because that's the highlight, and you have this really nice delineated bounce light or reflected light. And whatever on your blending stump, you can just kind of keep adding a little bit of shading to some of the other pearls. You don't even need to put that on every single one. because you'll have plenty on your blending stump. This is a lot of shading, so take your time. I often will draw something and then come back to it, and it's just so much fun to revisit what you've drawn. Here's a section here that needs to have some dark darks, and then we're just left to shade and finish this little area. I'm going to put a little on the stem as well. And I'm going to take my 01 and just draw a little oar line, just make this a little interesting. You can do all kinds of things there, obviously, but that's not the focus today. And then last but not least, I'm going to do a little frame around here based on our string that we made. It's going to be a frame a la Annie Reiser. And I'm just going to do some thick and thin lines, some almost diva dance-like strokes. And as you can see, I also shade around here so it makes it look like our whole little piece is dropping down on a mat. And then I did a couple little drop shadows here, which you can do or not, however you feel like finishing your piece. But I am going to definitely, I like the idea of the frame. It just sort of also grounds the whole piece. And I think I'll just stop there, and you can fill in your diva dance for this finished look here. Don't forget, I often do forget to tell you, it's so very important to show gratitude by signing, putting your chop on your piece. So that is one version of Flux. Have fun experimenting with this kind of botanical leafy look. I know it's more representational, not totally Zen-tangle-like, but it's really fun and easy to do and lends itself to some beautiful shading opportunities with all that overlap, which I just absolutely love. Here I'm just shading in some of the frame. I really want to get rid of this like hard line, and I might even go back in there with my kneaded eraser and lift. Okay, so I would say that that's done, except for maybe adding some more thick and thin line around here. Thick, thin, press down, lighten up, press down, lighten up. And I like that little jaggedy look. It's so kind of gemütlich, as we say in German. That is Flux. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'd love to see some of your work on my student Facebook page. We also enjoy being inspired by what you come up with. I'd love to see some berries, different colors, any other ideas you might have. Thanks again. See you next time. If you like these lunchtime tutorials, please give them a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I also invite you to check out my website for classes that I have scheduled or to purchase my tangle tags for your favorite step outs. That's botangle.net. I'm leaving you with some other links too. Zentangle.com, where you can learn more about the Zen-tangle method from its founders, Rick Roberts and Maria Thomas. You can also visit their store there for a multitude of Zen-tangle paper tiles, tools, books, and kits. Tanglepatterns.com is that site I talk about where you can explore hundreds of tangle patterns, read about them, and get the step out, which is basically the deconstruction of the pattern. And finally, if you'd like to share your beautiful results with me and my student community, please join Annie's Botangle Alumni Facebook page. We're a private group where we inspire each other with our work and offer tips and useful information about art and Zen-tangle.